Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids and we're back for some more Gwent, the Witcher themed card game, and today is the first day of the new SEESAW seasonal event. And so what this is it's an alternate game mode in which we have a fresh alternative to the standard mode where you play a special set of rules that change monthly. So previous month we had Battle Rush, which was basically a game mode in which you had only a few seconds to play all your cards and was quite hectic. And you can check out that went in a previous video. But in SEESAW, on the end of each player's turn, every unit that has an odd power will get damaged by 1, and every unit with an even amount of power will get boosted by 1. So it'll be interesting to see how dramatic that effect may be. I'm thinking that I'm going to continue to play Northern Realms here. That is usually my go-to faction, and I think that Royal Inspiration, the ability that I typically pick, as well as the deck that I typically pick, might be a decent option for this SEESAW event because it revolves around boosting a bunch of cards. So if the game mode does some of that boosting for us, then sounds good to me. So let's give this a shot here. This is my first time doing this new event. It came out today, and so I've done ever so minor tweaks to the deck. Okay, and so in this one we are going up against Skellige. Let's see how this one goes for us. Skellige can be a hard faction for Northern Realms to go against, but with them dealing lots of damage and us trying to do a lot of boosting. So it is largely, I think, coming down to who gets to do all the damaging or boosting first. A lot of momentum changes. The Doppler is effective in that it can boost itself based on how many of the same type of card we have in our hand here. We have a lot of humans. If we say get rid of Geralt, get a human, that would help. Get rid of a spell for another spell. Well, can we get a human here as well? We can. Okay, so now Doppler is a very strong first round card for us here. I like things in the first round because what we do is it gains 1 power for every card of the same base type. So we have, I think everyone here is a human. Yes, so we do this. It'll get boosted by a lot. And what if we say 5 and then boost? That way we are now on an even number. We were finishing on 16. And because we get boosted when we're on an even number, we got bumped up again to 17. So very strong. Did use our tactic as well. As for what we follow up with there, I think that City Guard is another interesting card to play because it can get boosted 1 every turn as long as we don't use its ability. So let's do that.
On the bench now.
And this card that they played deals 1 damage whenever we play a card, which is actually fortunate that time around because City Guard started as an odd-powered unit. However, after taking damage, it was actually 2 at the end of the round, and therefore got boosted. And its own ability boosts itself, as long as we don't move one of the cards to the other row. So we're off to a good start here. I'm thinking we probably want to pass early this round. And what I'm thinking is we wrap up with Vandergriff here, which has Resilience, carry him over to the next round. And he is an odd value unit right now. We can boost him with our leader ability. Then we are all evens here. So everyone should get boosted. I'm anticipating that we pass at the end of the next turn. I'm hoping that that catches our a little bit off guard here. That is a very strong combination, these 2 cards here. This one deals damage to neighboring units, and this unit gets boosted whenever it loses its armor, so good combination. Let's make a point of cutting them off early, though, by passing here. These cards, 2 of our 3 will go down because they were on the odd value there. But City Guard, because it boosts itself, and at the end of the round, when it's even, it gets boosted, it will actually stay even. So I think for that reason, this is a very powerful card to have, particularly in this game mode. And now the question is, does our opponent play more cards to try to catch up to us, or do they accept the loss? If they do try to catch up to us, then they're going to be at a card disadvantage, and means that it'll be easier for us to take round 2, especially considering that we have Vandergriff here, who will carry over into round 2 with his Resilience. So in some ways, I would argue that it might even be worth just taking the loss here. No, they are playing more cards, and strong ones at that.
Gods protect us.
That is a lot of damage they have there, and they will use it to get rid of Vandergriff. So there goes our carryover, but we are still in the lead here. That means they would have to play 1 more card still, at the very least, in order to surpass us. meaning we would have a 2-card advantage into round 2. at least, and therefore likely that they would just pass immediately in round 2, in which case we more or less take an automatic round 2 victory. So that's kind of why I think that this is not the best course of action here, what they're doing. Let's see how this plays out. They're going to play to us, except we're still in the lead. Oh, except with one more pass. Yeah, it is hard to tell what the end value is going to be, especially when you have a lot of units there. As you can see, it looks like we were going to actually finish with higher value than them, and therefore they were going to need to play one more card. That was enough for them there. But we do still see we have 10 cards, they have 8. So I do still anticipate that it is fairly likely that they may pass immediately in this round here. So no Dopplers to balance around here. Let's mostly just pick our best cards. And I think that getting a couple of Drummers and Strenger and Egmont here, it's a lot of boosters, but not a lot of people that we want to get boosted. So if we could get a Tridum or Nathaniel Pastodi, that would have been ideal. We did not. That is unfortunate. Those are the cards that deal damage when they get boosted. And they are pretty strong cards, so I would imagine that if they played it, they're planning on going hard this round. They're not just going to bow out and pass almost immediately. That would be a strong card to just throw away. So, I think because we don't have any targets for the boosting, that is a little bit tricky to gauge as to the best course of action here might be. And this card deals 1 damage whenever we play a unit. That actually puts the Electricity Guard, which would normally be a 3 strength unit, 4 strength, allowing it to get boosted here. So they did actually pass immediately after having played this card here, because they will draw 3 cards at the end of this round, bringing them back up to the maximum of 10. So in theory, they did have 1 card to burn. I'm just surprised that they opted to use this one of all their various cards. We do have 2 cards to burn here, so we could throw away our worst units. And I'm thinking that with that, we probably go with the Scytheman. I'm pretty sure that we would have still had enough in this round here if we just immediately had passed, because we would have gotten boosted from Kyrek City Guard, and it was on the even. We would have gotten boosted again. But in the interest of preparing ourselves for the last round with the best cards possible, I think it still makes sense for us. Because I don't think we're going to want to play any of these cards. We're going to want to hold on to them all for round 3. These are some of our best cards here. So a Tridum Infantry or Nathaniel Pastodi, those are the 2 cards that we are really hoping for. This card allows us to play our highest unit from our deck. Let's double check what that unit would be right now. Because it actually would be Nathaniel Pastodi. So that means this is one of those guys I was saying we really want to have in our hand, because he's good at getting boosted. Let's keep this. As for this one, that's not one of our better cards. Stennis is another booster. What about Rune Word? Probably worse than Stennis, so Stennis would have been the best one to leave out on. But this will do. Lots and lots of boosters. 1 target to be when we play this card here. So I think what we do is we play Domineer of Troy first. And what he does is he makes it so that because he's a defender, our enemy will not be able to target our strongest boosters. And I deliberately used our leader ability there to boost him 1 more. That way, he was normally a 7 strength card, but was actually an 8 after the boost, so therefore he got boosted by the special game mode we're in rather than getting damaged. Keeps his shield. And that card there deals damage to itself in order to deal damage to opponents, which means you can pretty easily manipulate what the final value, what the final strength is going to be at the end of a turn on this guy. So I think that's probably a decent card for this game mode as well. And I was conflicted as to whether to play Domineer of Troy in the melee or ranged row, because in the melee row, he can protect Egmont, who's definitely going to go there. However, in the ranged row, he could have protected Corvo, who needs to go in the range row, and usually I would play this guy in the range row, because usually I'm prioritizing protecting Corvo. So we are going to play him here. He can take 1 damage from being an odd-powered unit, and he is not guarded right now. There's no defender blocking him, so in theory our opponent could go straight for him, and probably should. I would argue this was probably could be a pretty significant misplay, because Corvo is far and away our strongest booster. So they ought to get rid of him as soon as possible, which they could very well do right now. But if not, then we are in luck. And it does feel like we have all the time in the world to make a cup of coffee and have some breakfast. What with this no longer being hurricane mode, we have seemingly 2-3 times as much time. So there we did see that our opponent dealt some damage to Corvo, and we will need to boost him, otherwise he will go down here, because he's now currently on the odd value. However, I think what we do is we can start to play some of our other boosters here and perhaps apply them to Corvo. So if we put Enna Strenger here, he is currently an even value unit, so she should get boosted. Let's boost Corvo. We could theoretically make a point of using Corvo to say, bring some odd valued units into the even number, so let's do that. That way everyone's getting boosted. Now Corvo is at least a little bit harder to take down, what with 4 rather than 1 strength. And we're gonna want to get Astodi in here as soon as possible now, using this card here. Because again, he is the one that we want to boost more than anyone else. Okay, so our opponent is using their leader ability. This is actually a new one. Spawns rain on an enemy row for 1 turn and a deafening siren on the opposite row. I can do that 3 times, so rain will deal 2 damage to random units in the row. By 1. And this will damage an enemy unit by 1 with 5 charges. So basically, they're loading up on the damages. And so that is a little bit concerning. Does mean that Corvo is in jeopardy here. Very likely that they would try to target him and or Enna Strenger. And again, playing Domir in the melee row is less than ideal when, as you can see here, at the moment we have no one to block. These guys really were the ones that we wanted to prioritize blocking more so than Eggman. So we have a couple options here. What we can do is we can play Pestodi as soon as possible, get him in here, and use the boost that Corvo has, or we can try to boost these guys further and make it such that our opponent might not be able to take them out just yet. But I think that is probably wishful thinking, that latter one, because I don't think we're going to have enough boosting to make that happen. Let's play Pastodi.
So dislike being disturbed.
Let's boost some people, including Pastodi. Make sure that people are on the even. And this is likely the last we will see of Corvo. What with our opponent having enough damage here alone to take him out. But we did at least have the opportunity to use him to boost everyone a bit, including Pastodi a fair bit. So we did still get a bit out of him, but of course the ideal scenario would have been to allow him to stay alive for the entirety of this round. What that does is that it takes a little bit of attention off of Pastodi and allows us to continue to boost them even further, which is something that we can do with, say, Temerian Drummer. So in some ways that is still fine. We have just so many boosters here. I was gonna say, if you want to deliberately make it so that our cards are ending up on an even number, then that is perfectly alright with me. However, you ultimately did not do that. Perhaps you were doing exactly the opposite. Okay, so we can boost one person here. Who do we want that to be? I think we want that to be Pastodi, because remember when he's on the even number, he's going to get boosted again. And now he has a ton of sources of boost. However, I think so much so that he's going to be boosted between even and odds every turn, so it's not going to be quite as much of this time when he's on 11 relative to what we had previous time when he was on an even number. Except, oh, Geralt Igni will get rid of him here. That is very well played.
Damn it.
Gets rid of the strongest unit when we have at least 20 strength in one row. So that was well done there. For them to have 2 cards capable of removing this units is... And let's see what card we draw. And let's at least put somebody
Famous last words right there.
behind Domineer of Troy. So what we do here is I think we play Eggman. starting to
Of my father.
rack up the boosts in melee row as well. These two will boost each other. So we do have some still consistent boosting here. Maybe not exactly the way we would have liked for it to have happened. Damage all opponents on the opposite row by 1. Okay. They're going melee. There are, of course, more cards there. That is probably the reason why they opted to go that route. However, I would think that our range row is perhaps a little more vulnerable to being messed with. But with Anna Stranger needing to be boosted to boost people on both sides of her. So, I think what we do here is we either play another Temerian Drummer, because of course the sooner we get these guys out, the more opportunity they have to boost. Or we play... yeah, I think we do that. And we can say...
Army's a waste of time for
boost Dandelion here. Now we have a fair bit more boosting happening in the melee row than we do in the range row. Let's make a point of changing somebody who is currently on an odd into an even number. Who would we like that to be? I think actually we want that to be Anna Stranger. We want her to be always on the even number. Otherwise, though, we have a lot of people who are taking damage from being on the odd value there. But hopefully that means this time around we have lots of people on even numbers. We'll have a little bit more boosting than damaging next time around. And we have played one more card than our opponent, so even though we have a 12 strength advantage here, that is a little bit deceptive. And next time around, I think we're going to want to play Rune Word, because it gives us Vitality for 4 turns, so we're not going to have a ton of time in which for that to take effect. However, our opponent is now going to play a card that allows us to draw another card here,
You'll forget your sorrows.
which I would argue is almost always a terrible idea when you're going against Northern Realms, because the longer the round, the stronger they become, generally speaking. Okay, more rain and more sirens. So, the card that we drew was one that allows us to boost 3 adjacent units, which is definitely something we're going to want to do eventually. I was really hoping we were going to get, say, Pridem Infantry, because that's the card that we've been trying to get for a long time here, the one that does damage when it gets boosted. However, I think we probably still stick with Rune Word here. That way we're getting some consistent boosting with Vitality, and I just put it on the wrong card. So completely ignore that. Should have put it on someone who, well, is not veiled, because when you are veiled, you can't have a status, and Vitality is one of those statuses, so that was extremely silly of me. What I should have done was put it on really anyone else. They would have gotten a shield and also gotten the Vitality. In case you can't tell, yes, this is a card that I've only just recently added to my deck, so I'm getting used to playing with it. But yes, the veil is significant, don't ignore that. What with me having made the point of putting Domineer of Troy in the melee row as well, in order to protect him. Okay, so our opponent has played another one of the Deafening Sirens using their leader ability. They are now out of those. And as for what we do here, this time around what we ought to do is make a point of boosting the correct way, using this card here. And we have several guys who are on the odd value. In fact, we could boost ourselves. That would put everyone here on the even. So that's great. Then we can boost Anna Stranger. That is definitely one advantage we have, is that we have a lot of ability to manipulate whether or not we have odd or even strength powered units. That alone meant we gained 10 strength that round. Again, we have played one more card than our opponent, so it's a little bit deceptive that we have a 10 strength lead. But we do also have a strong card still in our hand, Geralt Yurden, allowing us to reset one of their rows. So if they get strongly boosted, we can counteract that. Next turn will likely be Nana K. We'll boost some Mar units. But what are they thinking here? Okay, they're going to deal some damage with that guy. A random unit. And it is Egmund, so Egmund is, in fact, actually going to go down this turn unless we boost him well. Not a problem. Let's boost him.
Again.
And we, of course, could be boosting units when we have someone to the right of Anna Stranger, and We want to do that as soon as possible, of course, and it took us a while to get there. However, we had a bunch of other cards that we were also trying to set up, so I think it was probably okay. We just had so much boosting and not a lot of people to get boosted with our particular hand this time around, so maybe that's another thing that we might want to rebalance a little bit. We want to make the point of having Eggman be at least a little bit stronger so that he's on the even number and doesn't immediately get taken out. Let's get rid of other odd numbers here. There we go. Everyone is even number. We used our leader ability last turn, so we can't use that. This is where we want everyone to be. So everyone gets boosted. How does our opponent react to this? Just by 2. Wow, that is strong. However, does, for the most part, keep us on the even value, so in that way, it is good. And we could say, continue to boost with our leader ability and make people, again, mostly even numbered. Question of who we might want that to be. I think let's go for Eggman. Could use our ability here to damage an enemy unit by 3. That is probably worthwhile, because that means we won't be able to boost Marion Drummer this time, but that's losing the 1 boost in order to gain 3 damage. That's probably okay. Let's do that against someone in, I believe, this row here, because it looks like this one that we ought to reset. It seems like our opponent has a little more strength there. So, the hope then is that our opponent does not have an amazing card to play with their last card here. Dandelion is a strong one. They don't know what that card is going to be. Ends up being Drummond Queen's Guard. It will not. Lots of even strength units there. You saw just how much they got boosted at the very end, so that was concerning. Had me nervous for a second there, but we did ultimately pull it off. Of course, we were able to stick with it, largely because we just had so much boosting and enough control over that boosting. We could make a point of ending rounds with as many even strength units as possible. So in that way, I think, yes, there are definitely some strengths with this deck here. I think most of the mistakes were mistakes of me just not being used to the 1 or 2 new cards that I've thrown in. So let's try one more round here. Okay, and we are going against monsters.
Humans, you're all the same.
So they won't be dealing nearly as much damage, at least unlikely to be dealing as much damage as the Skellige deck was that we played previously. Let's take a look at what we have here. We do again have Domineer of Troy plus Corvo. That's a good combo. We still don't have anyone that we want to get boosted though, which is a little bit concerning. We do have a Witcher and a few spells along with the Doppler, so if we want to play Doppler and Pure City Guard first round, which is a combo that I very much like, and I think we tried to get rid of Geralt's here, and the Stringer's a good pickup. More boosters. There's our target. Okay. So yes, I think this is a much better starting hand than we had previously. What we'll do is we'll play Doppler first, followed by Pure City Guard, followed by Redanian Elite, then we'll likely pass. The idea there is that we are going to try to have as much power as we can very early, throw our opponents a little bit off guard, make it so that they have to make the choice. You can play additional cards to keep up and go at a card disadvantage going forward, or just take the loss. It's a very strong card, Haunt. Those scenarios, they're always good. However, they do take a little bit of time to put them to full use. So I'm hoping that we might still be able to pull... However, we had a lot of units there that were on the odd number, which is unfortunate. We'll want to make a point, I think, of boosting Pure City Guard at the end of this next turn. They're going very aggressive at the beginning as well, and in fact, may have more strength at the end of this round than we do, especially if they use their tactic. Let's see if they do. Yeah, so this entire deck setup is based on consuming cards in order to make them stronger. In this card here, you can consume multiple times, and it will still come back to the battlefield. It doesn't permanently end up in your graveyard, so that's why it's such a good combination. So, I think what we do here is we're going to play Redanian Elite. We're going to boost Pure City Guard. We're going to get boosted a little bit here between these two. Redanian Elite will take 1 damage, but his armor will take the hit, so it won't be a huge deal. And then we will likely still pass at the end of this next turn, take the first round loss on the assumption that our opponent is going to continue to play very strong cards, and they are doing just that. However, they've thrown away fantastic card, pretty good card, So I think we can live with that. They have also played 4 cards, whereas we've only played 3. So that means that we will have a 1-card advantage going into round 2. Sometimes people will just pass immediately in round 2, even when they're at just a 1-card disadvantage. That seems to me like that's probably a little bit overreacting. But that might mean that we get an easy round 2. In fact, they just outright forfeited. They may have been planning on going all out in round 1. It certainly looked like that was the case, so for us to pass early means that, like I was saying, they threw away many of their good cards when they didn't really need to. We were ready to hand them that round 1 victory if they really wanted it. And so we were ready to go hard in round 2 and round 3. They were not. And so there you have it. There is a bit of a look at what it is like to play the new SEESAW seasonal event. Let me know down in the comments, what would you guys do to deliberately build a deck around this type of mechanic? I'm curious to hear. Definitely found that having all the various boosts with Northern Realms, particularly the ones that we can target on specific people, was very helpful. What do you think is the best way to go? But either way, I'll catch you all next time.